911, do you need police, fire, medical?
I need both.
What happened?
Someone told me that she me through my bedroom. They kind of threw me and my baby out of the bed.
All right, we'll get someone out there.
First responders arrive
The woman got knocked out of bed.
and find the caller and her 8-year-old son with minor injuries.
Can you imagine being asleep and getting woken up with that in your house?
Climb in from the back.
Inside the Chevy Tahoe,
There's blood on his head and neck.
they find a man in the driver's seat and another in the passenger seat, both shot and bleeding.
Driver is still barely alive.
Paramedics rush the driver to the hospital, but the passenger does not survive. For homicide detectives, their chance of solving a murder is cut in half if they don't get a lead within the first 48 hours.
That's pretty wild, dude.
Detective Justin Ritter will lead the investigation.
Can you imagine being asleep and getting woken up with that?
God.
There was a kid in a bed right there where that went in.
Where's the kid at?
Hospital.
The 911 caller and her son are in good condition at the hospital.
I'm glad he's okay.
Our dead guy's name is Charles Walker.
32-year-old Charles Walker was born and raised in Muskogee, Oklahoma. Known as Seawalk, he attended Muskogee High and later moved to Tulsa to pursue a career in the music industry. Charles leaves behind 2 sisters, 2 brothers, and a 3-year-old son.
Love you. See you. Yeah.
He was over the center console and leaned over on the driver.
Where's he shot?
The left side of his head.
Charles was shot once in his head
That's gonna be an entrance wound right there.
and once in the back.
The driver got shot in the neck.
The driver was shot 3 times in the back of his neck and is still in surgery.
The driver said my partner, right here, was doing business with somebody else, and then I got shot in the neck.
He briefly spoke to responding officers before being rushed to the hospital.
He didn't mention who the third guy was. You don't know that right now.
Hope he lives.
In the parking lot, 30 feet from the Chevy Tahoe,
You got 1 casing over here.
the team recovers a single 9mm shell casing.
The other casings are probably in that car somewhere. He guns it forward, runs into this apartment.
That makes sense. So it goes. He just happens to have an empty spot here to drive through, because there's your damage. Why is there a casing outside on the street, though?
He could be firing as he's running out.
I'm curious to see what's in the car. Damn. Dude, there's a bag of pills.
The team finds hundreds of pills on the floor behind the driver's seat.
Looks like this is a dope deal gone bad. Is this your apartment here?
This is my wife's house.
Okay, you mind if I take a peek in there real quick? Wow.
You got 2 phones in the front.
Hand me a bag, will you?
Detective Max Ryden collects 2 cell phones.
That one's in the center console. Center cup holder. There should be some cases in there.
Yeah, just tow it.
The Chevy Tahoe will be towed to headquarters and processed for evidence.
Well, at least you got cell phones. That'll be something to go with.
1 hour in,
So the vehicle belongs to her.
Charles's girlfriend, Markel, arrives with their 3-year-old son, Chance, after recognizing her Chevy Tahoe on the news.
I'm Detective Ritter. I work homicide. Why don't you come talk to me in my car? That way I can kind of tell you what's going on. How long have y'all been together?
10 years.
Okay. Do you know who he left with tonight?
To my knowledge, he left by himself. I've been calling and calling and calling. There's no answer, no text message.
I don't really know how else to tell you this, but he was shot and he was killed.
This can't be Charles, man.
I really am sorry. This was a drug deal that went bad. That's what it looks like. So I'm trying to figure out if Charles and his buddy were here to buy or to sell. Do they use pills?
No.
Do they sell pills?
If he does, I don't know anything about it.
Okay. You don't know why they would be over here?
I've never even heard of these apartments.
This is my card, and if you have any questions, call me.
Okay.
Seriously, I'm sorry, okay?
Left his truck.
Yeah, Daddy left his truck, buddy.
Then,
But we have someone here that might have seen you, at least half of it.
Okay.
a witness that lives in the apartment complex comes forward.
Just have a seat in my car.
Okay.
What's up?
Me and my friend, we were sitting down and we just heard the gunshots, but at the same time, it sounded like something crashed.
When you heard the noise, what'd you do?
We just looked and we seen two dudes running towards this silver car.
What kind of car is it?
It's a 4-door and it's kind of like 1995 Toyotas.
A Toyota type vehicle?
I don't know if it was a Toyota, but it was silver, like in good shape.
Okay, what color were the people that jumped in
They
the
were black, dark, skinny and tall.
All right. This is my card.
Okay.
All right, bye. I don't know. We have two suspects or what?
What now, Mr. Ritter?
I'm gonna head downtown and then we'll go start looking at bones. Normal deal.
Okay.
It's a wild west out here these days.
Back at headquarters,
What do you got?
CSI just finished processing the Tahoe.
A 32 auto underneath the driver's side gas pedal.
They found 3 .32 caliber shell casings on the driver's side floor
Backseat floorboard was a 9mm Luger.
and a 9mm casing behind the passenger seat.
Then a whole bunch of Chlortab pills.
The team counted 485 pills.
There was a gun in the car. 25 of it.
The gun was under the passenger seat.
There's a 25 in the car, but the casings are 380 and 9. So I think we got two suspects on the run, one with a 9, one with a 380.
Then,
This is Detective Rodman.
the team gets an update on the victim at the hospital.
Paralyzed.
The gunshot wounds to his neck have left the driver paralyzed from the chest down. But he's expected to survive.
Okay, thanks. Bye. Guy that's at the hospital? Conscious, can't talk, but can acknowledge with head nods and stuff. Well, that's something. Oh, yeah.
Five hours in,
Hey, what kind of Xannies do you have? My girl's looking for them.
Ritter looks through Charles's text messages from around the time of the shooting.
Black LJ homie texts my victim saying, okay, I'll have my gun on me, okay, I'm bringing mine too, they're bringing their guns.
Minutes before the 911 call came in, Charles was texting with a contact named Black LJ Homie.
So my victim says to this guy at 1 o'clock, where do I go?
Black LJ Homie tells Charles to meet him at the apartment complex where the shooting occurred.
129, you about to pull up. 159, incoming call from that number, and we get the call at 207.
What's the number?
Ritter runs the phone number for Black LJ Homie.
There it is, Cedric Warrior. We have some addresses for him.
23-year-old Cedric Warrior was raised in Tulsa and attended Gilcrease Middle School. He is a father and has no prior convictions.
I'm gonna start at the beginning.
Ritter looks through Charles's messages from earlier in the day.
2:15 p.m. yesterday, Cedric Warrior texts my victim, says, I'm coming to Tulsa. They want $500 if you could hold them till tonight. They gone, be sold. Let me know ASAP, because they're trying to go back to Muskogee. Cedric may be the middleman. My victim says, you want Watson or M367? M367, those are the pills that are in the back seat. So all this jives up. We need to go out to the hospital. The guy that got shot in the neck that was in the driver's seat, he's paralyzed but alert, which is good enough for a photo lineup.
Come on.
An hour later.
Just made a photo lineup that contains Cedric Warrior. So we're going to show a photo lineup to the driver that's alive and see if he can identify any of the pictures as being in the car when this incident happened.
While Detective Max Ryden heads to St. Francis Hospital.
Warrior has an 08 Acura. Margot runs it, and it's gray or silver.
Crime analyst Margot Hain Bell has a lead on the suspect vehicle.
I had the female witness at the scene. She sees a silver vehicle that she describes as like a 95 Toyota. Two guys jump in and it leaves. That thing looks like a freaking 95 Toyota. I think you should run on that.
Detective Mark Kennedy will look for Cedric's silver Acura at the addresses listed in his file.
Tell you what, you'd be my hero if you find it.
Nine hours since Charles was killed.
Hello?
Hey.
Ryden calls in with the results of the photo lineup.
He said immediately it was Cedric's pictures.
The surviving victim identified Cedric Warrior as the man who set up the drug deal.
The reaction that there's 5 people there. There's him and the guy, and then 3 suspects. And Warrior was there present. And I go, do you have a gun? He goes, no.
So Cedric's the middleman without a gun. Do you think he knows the other 2 guys?
I don't think he knows their names. The nurse said he is going to live for sure.
Sweet.
Okay, bye.
So living victim says that yes, Cedric Warrior was there. He did not have a gun. Him getting picked out is big. So, I mean, we'll have enough for an arrest warrant.
Hours later,
we ran across Cedric's vehicle.
Kennedy spotted Cedric's Acura at one of his known addresses.
Got a bunch of guys down here from the fugitive squad and set up on it. He comes walking back to it, and when it started moving, we stopped him. We got him in custody, and he just indicated he knew what it was about. We're hoping Cedric can lead us to 2 other individuals that were there.
What's up, man?
Ritter and Corporal Nathan Schilling will interview Cedric.
So, man, you said that you knew what this was about and that somebody that you were in contact with last night died, right? Okay, so why don't you just kind of tell me how that went down?
Wednesday, I hit C-Walk. I was supposed to get some pills from him. He was like, meet me over here. We want to meet up with somebody else too.
He says Charles arranged to meet him at the apartment complex where the shooting occurred.
Who else was he selling to?
I don't know. Like, when I got the pills from him, boom, somebody else pulled up next to my car. So they gave me my pills, did my thing and left. I don't know what he had going on after I left. I ain't got no part of this man getting killed. I've been finished with him. I don't want him dead.
How many pills?
I got an order for 500.
So you arrange for 500 pills from Charles?
Yeah. C-Walk. I was a middleman getting some money.
Who was it for?
It was a guy I've been dealing with.
Who?
Come from Kansas.
What's his name? Don't lie to me.
I don't know his name, honestly. What I call him? Stay ready.
Where did you deliver the pills to him at?
Down there by Torchy's.
He claims he met with Stay Ready and another man from Kansas in the parking lot of a bar.
Charles. Where's he getting them?
He makes them.
Are they real or fake?
Fake.
So he's selling 500 to 1,000 fake pills to people. It's a dangerous game you're playing. Well, that'll get your ass killed.
It is a dangerous game right there.
How are people not figuring out that you're selling them fake?
They know I'd have been put on Facebook, blasted for selling some fake tabs.
What about this Stay Ready from Kansas?
He knows.
Cedric claims Stay Ready knows the Lortab pills are fake.
The two Kansas dudes, they've been coming there and getting pills from me for like a good 2 months.
He says he's bought pills from Charles for Stay Ready and the other man from Kansas before.
Do you know where in Kansas they're from?
Kansas City.
What were the Kansas guys driving?
A little blue Honda.
Where's your phone?
Phone's in the car. I'll show you the messages from me at C-Walk, and I'll show you the messages from me the Kansas boys.
Okay. All right, hang tight for a sec. So living victim says that yes, Cedric Warrior was there. So he's holding back. The two guys from Kansas are probably going to be the suspects.
Yeah. How does he get a hold of these guys from Kansas?
He texts, it's on his phone.
I think you should take the phone in there and let him show you the numbers there. Really.
You said that you would show me what's up. Where's the Stay Ready guy's number?
Wait, right here.
The 860?
There's a main number.
What's the other number? 913. All right, hang tight.
Let's do this.
Kennedy runs the first phone number.
Okay, there's Stay Ready. Maurice Sanders.
23-year-old Maurice Sanders attended Webster High School in Tulsa, and his prior convictions for possession of a stolen vehicle, assault and battery upon a detention officer, and knowingly concealing stolen property.
Want to throw him in a lineup?
Okay.
Hey, Cedric, how you doing?
All right.
I'm going to show you some photos, okay? Go ahead and look through those and see if you find somebody that looks like Stay Ready.
This is him.
He picks out Maurice Sanders.
That's him? Here, why don't you circle that one? I appreciate you, man. There's your photo line. You picked up boy, Maurice.
Sweet.
So what do you think?
I think me and Mark will go talk to him again and confront him.
Love that jacket.
He was cold.
Man, gave me some warmth.
Okay. Dude, here's the problem. 2 people were in that vehicle that got shot. One died and the other didn't.
Okay.
And we've talked to him.
Okay. And did he say, what did he say? Did he say anything?
He said you were there.
He said I was there.
He picked you out of a photo lineup and said you were there.
That man did not see me.
Well, he said he did.
I understand you want to say that you left and some other car pulled up, but I've got the victim's cell phones and I've got a living victim, and your story does not add up. There is no other people coming to meet him. Look at me, bro.
Man, you know what, man? It did, man.
I know
some
it did.
bad happened. We pulled up, man. They was all in my car, every single one of them. She walks in my car, dude's in the back seat, dude in the back seat.
The guy that you picked out of the photo lineup to be stay ready.
Yes.
He says that Maurice Sanders and the other man from Kansas were there when Charles was killed.
They was like, your car is too light because it didn't have no tent. Seawalk was like, my truck is tent. Let's jump in the truck and count them.
Okay.
So they jumped in Seawalk's car, and I left. As I hit the corner, I heard bah, bah, bah. And I drove off. That's it. Straight up.
You're almost there, but I've also got a witness at the scene that sees them jump back into your silver car and leave.
Oh, no, you don't. They have their own car. When we pulled up, like, they was already there. It was a little blue car.
The first story you gave me, yeah, it was bull. That car was already there, which is what you're telling me this time.
Yeah, I did bring the 2 parties together. When they jumped in his car, I thought the deal was over, honestly. I was supposed to be the middleman. That's the whole reason to be being there.
Describe the other guy, not stay ready, but the other guy.
Other guy, tall, black, long dreads.
Long.
Damn near to the
Okay.
about 24 to 25.
And you have no idea who this other guy is?
Look, they were calling me out both phones, you know what I'm saying? 913 is the other guy.
He says the second phone number he gave to Ritter belongs to the other man from Kansas.
Okay. You're gonna have to hang out for a sec, and I appreciate you coming with it, though. (913).
Ritter runs the second number he got from Cedric.
Oh, there we go.
Came back with a hit. Justin Brooks.
27-year-old Justin Brooks is from Yonkers, New York, and is the father of 4 children. He has no prior convictions.
So it looks like he's got a felony warrant out of North Dakota for possession of a controlled substance. He's going to be our second suspect. Cedric's going to jail for felony murder. He set up a drug deal between 2 parties that resulted in one party dying.
Really?
And he may be used as a witness at some point. He could probably, in the long run, get a pretty minimal spanking for this deal compared to the other 2 guys. And that's not really for me to decide. Tomorrow, we'll start looking for the other 2 guys, the actual shooters.
As the clock winds down,
We're gonna go into St. Francis here and interview the victim that was shot. I'm hoping we can get some more information on what actually happened out there when Charles got shot. Hey, man. I'm Detective Ritter. Man, I'm sorry this has happened to you. I know they talked to you a little bit yesterday. Do you remember them showing you the pictures?
Oh, yeah. Cedric. He's Cedric.
Yeah.
John Jews.
What would be their motive?
6 shots. Shot Lobby. He's trying to find that. Gibson. At his day, God.
You understand that the pills were fake, is that correct?
Yeah. Cedric. Bobby told him.
That they were fake?
Yeah. He better give it to him.
All right. Well, man, I'm going to let you rest and get better, and okay? Thanks. The victim, he's in bad shape, but basically he thought that the guys from Kansas were there to kill Charles because pills were fake. This guy, he's probably at the wrong place at the wrong time. Unfortunately, he's going to end up paralyzed for the rest of his life. So we've got enough PC to arrest Sanders right now, and if we can get a good ID from Warrior on Justin Brooks, we'll have enough probable cause to arrest him as well.
In the first 48, Tulsa Homicide responded to the killing of 32-year-old Charles Walker. Discovered text messages in his phone from a man named Cedric Warrior. Tracked down Cedric, who said he was the middleman in a drug deal between Charles and 2 men from Kansas, and identified the men from Kansas as Maurice Sanders and Justin Brooks, but have yet to get a positive ID on Brooks. The next day,
I'm going to take this photo lineup of this Justin Brooks, show it to our middleman, Cedric Warrior, who's currently in the Tulsa County Jail, and see if he can identify the second subject. So I want you to take a look at these. There's 6 photos, and if you see somebody that looks like the individual that was with Stay Ready that night, I want you to see if you can identify him. Is that fair? Okay. Here's the photos. Take a look at them.
Damn, this is him. This is him for sure.
he identifies Justin Brooks.
And that's the same person you saw get into the back of that Tahoe.
Yes, sir.
And then right afterwards, you heard the gunshots.
Yeah.
I say Detective Ritter's going to start knocking out the arrest affidavit for his arrest, and then we can try to go locate this guy.
While Ritter works on the arrest warrant,
There he is right there, man.
Kennedy finds Justin Brooks on social media.
He's a barber somewhere.
That looks like a business logo.
NY the barber? That's definitely the same place.
So he probably works at a barber shop in Kansas City.
Let's do this. New York Barber Shop, Kansas City. Just trying to figure out where he works, but he could be anywhere. Ooh, right there, look at that. New York Barber Shop, Kansas City, and it's in Overland Park, Kansas, which is a 913 area code.
Really?
That's that place.
Sweet. He just posted like 12 when?
All right, Joe.
Hey, I was wondering if you could do me a favor.
Ritter reaches out to detectives in Kansas City, Kansas, 4 hours north of Tulsa.
I've got a murder I'm working here. The guy we're looking at, his name is Justin Brooks. We determined he's a barber that I think lives in Kansas City. And I was wondering if I give you Name, birthday, social, at your convenience, if you could run him. Yep, I will send you an email right now with this guy's info and see what you got. I appreciate it. All right, see you.
Ritter will turn over the search for Justin Brooks and Maurice Sanders to the Fugitive Warrants Squad. Later,
we figured out that Justin was a barber and worked at a specific barber shop. One of our fugitive warrants guys got with some of the warrants guys up in Kansas City. They sent in one of their guys to get his beard trimmed. So this cop is actually sitting in the barber shop, and Justin Brooks, the suspect, is trimming his beard just so they could get a good ID on him. So after that, they ended up arresting him. So we're going up to Kansas City right now. We're gonna interview Justin. I don't know if Justin will talk or not. I guess it's 50-50 right now, you never know.
Four hours later, in Kansas City.
What's up, man? How's it going? I'm Detective Ritter. This is Detective Ryden. Okay? Yes, sir. We're from Tulsa. Let's see. I'd like to talk to you a little bit. I'm not going to trick you or anything like that. I'll just start from the beginning. How? Well, you seem like an intelligent guy, and we're just going to talk. They're telling me you're from Yonkers?
Yonkers, New York.
So how'd you end up in Kansas City?
I have 2 kids here, and I got 2 more because I'm married now, so I have 4 total.
How did you end up in Tulsa, Oklahoma?
You said I was in Tulsa.
You wouldn't have a warrant out for your arrest from Tulsa if you weren't in Tulsa, because I have to have probable cause to get that information, okay? And let me ask you this, how do you know Maurice Sanders?
I know him through people.
So did you meet him in Kansas City?
Did.
Okay. I'm sharing a little bit with you to show that I know what went down. I mean, you guys were there buying pills, okay? Lower tab. So, just to show you that I know what's up and that I'm being honest with you and I'm not playing tricks on you, I know what happened out there. And if you went over there and it was a straight up murder, then we really need to talk.
I don't be out shooting people.
Exactly. Man, you don't seem like it. You seem like a freaking laid back guy.
Shooting, stabbing, none of that stuff. Hanging people.
I mean, that's not how you're coming across to me at all.
This is a bad situation.
Mm-hmm. Don't get more serious.
Yeah. Don't talk, they can charge me with first-degree premeditated murder for, 40 plus with a life, whatever you want to call it. Do talk, lower time, I don't know, 15 maybe, 10, maybe 20, who knows.
But how old are you?
Yeah, I'm 27.
It's awful young. You got 4 kids. There's more to this story you need to tell me. Obviously, dude, this is as serious as it gets. Why are you in the middle of this?
I deal pills. Got my wife to a better house. Car, things like that, kids, whatever. So everything's supposed to be so simple.
Okay.
But it was more to it. We was all in the car.
Hold on, so you guys did go to the complex in the Honda?
Yeah. It should be put away. That great car, put away.
Justin says Cedric arrived, and he and Maurice and Charles got into his silver Acura.
First, they was arguing. There was just a lot going on.
Who was arguing?
Them 3.
Maurice, middleman.
I handed the money over.
He says he gave Maurice the money for the pills.
Is it your money?
Yeah, like
how much does that cost?
That was like 25.
So it's 25.
Brooks paid $2,500 to buy 500 pills from Charles.
So basically, you're the money man. Maurice is communicating with the middleman.
Yeah. Numbers start taking place. I was short like 100 quantity arguments, whatever. It was just a bunch of extraness. So I walked out.
He says he got out of Cedric's car.
Like, Reese and the other dude to get out, come talk to me.
and Maurice and Charles followed him.
Walk from the car, get over to the SUV.
Justin says he, Charles, and Maurice got into the Tahoe.
When I sat down, sat here, they were sitting right there.
According to Justin, he sat behind Charles, who was in the front passenger seat, and Maurice was behind the driver.
They still arguing. It was just all around confusion. Next thing you know, this man leaves. He looks back.
Charles looked back at Maurice.
And he's like, "Oh, it was good, bro." He reached over to do something. All you hear was boom.
And Maurice shot him.
He fell over. That's when panic jumped in. Some panic. Drive. You know, should we take off? Boom, hit wall. I hopped out. People coming out. Just hop in the car. Take back off.
Brooks and Maurice drove back to Kansas City in the blue Honda.
I just want to forget about it.
You guys split up once you got back to KC?
Yeah.
Why does Maurice shoot him?
You ask that man.
Did you know the pills were fake?
No.
Did Maurice?
I don't know.
Where did you sell them? What state?
North Dakota. Money out there. Like, I just make good money.
What are you guys able to turn around and sell them for?
15, 20.
A pill? Damn. I'd be pretty pissed off if somebody sold me 500 or 1,000 fake pills.
That batch right there was fake. I had no problems.
But did you physically take them yourself?
No.
Has Maurice?
Not that I know of. She's saying that he got shot because it was fake.
No, I'm asking you. I'm asking you if you knew they were fake.
No.
Well, man, I'm going to go to the DA and tell them that you're cooperating and you told me the truth. And maybe the fact that the guy that you shot's alive may end up helping a little bit. Sorry you got involved in this.
He did show remorse of some sort.
I mean, it's weird. These guys, some of them are, once you sit down and talk to them, you know, when they're not in the heat of the moment of doing the bad things they do, he was a nice guy. During the interview, he never really came 100% with what the argument was about. But interview ends, and one of the Kansas City guys takes him back to the jail, and he makes a statement. Tell those Tulsa guys, I'm sorry, I didn't tell them this, but yeah, there was an argument in the car over the quality of the pills, which led to the shooting. Maybe Maurice just had enough of it and shot him and killed him.
Then,
got a text message. Maurice was arrested in Bismarck, North Dakota.
The Bismarck Police Department received a tip on the location of Maurice Sanders, and he was taken into custody.
When they got him, he had over 130 Lortab pills. He refused to talk to us without his attorney. But everybody's in custody, both alleged shooters and the middleman. The tragic part of it is Charles has a son that's obviously not going to ever see his dad again. Justin has 4 kids that aren't going to see him for years. You know, when your parent gets killed or goes to prison, you don't have as much opportunity as somebody with a good family structure. And on top of that, our surviving victim is paralyzed for the rest of his life, so just all the way around a bad deal.
6 years after Charles was shot and killed.
It's still not real because I haven't accepted it.
His family gathers at his gravesite to remember him.
Chance was 3 when this happened, and he's 10 now. It's been hard raising him by myself. Ooh, I'm sorry. He was a great father.
Anytime you've seen Charles, you've seen Chance. He always had that hustle. He was cutting grass at 8 years old.
Anything to make 50 cents to $1 just to show that he loved his family. He always tries to make sure we were first. I know some people might have wanted to label him as a drug dealer. That's probably who he was at the moment, but that's not exactly who he was. He was a good person. It ain't a day that goes by I don't think about him. To me, he lives right here in my heart.
Based on preliminary visual evidence, the coroner gently suggested the possibility that Steve had suffered a massive, sudden heart attack. When questioned about what led to this initial medical opinion, the coroner explained that there was a specific blueness in the coloration of his face and across the top of his chest, which in the medical field can sometimes be a visual indicator of a cardiac event. Returning to the living room, Sergeant Day respectfully shared these preliminary thoughts with Lana. He noted that the plush carpet on the staircase showed faint footprints, suggesting Steve had walked down. He gently advised Lana not to dwell on the agonizing thought of him falling violently, offering a small measure of comfort. Lana, processing this heavy information, softly expressed her belief that this was simply the day that the heavens had chosen to call him home. In a beautiful display of family solidarity, Nick and his relatives immediately began helping Lana clean and organize the large house. They desperately wanted to ensure that the home remained a comfortable and safe sanctuary for her during this unimaginably exhausting time, knowing she would need a peaceful place to sleep that evening. However, as they moved upstairs to tidy the master bedroom, they were met with a confusing and deeply concerning situation. Upon entering the room, they immediately noticed a very strong, overwhelming odor indicating that Steve had been completely unable to leave the bed to use the restroom for a significant period of time. The mattress was heavily soiled, revealing large areas of deep discoloration. This discovery raised deeply troubling questions in the minds of the family members. The sheer volume of the evidence suggested that Steve must have been confined to that bed, utterly helpless and severely incapacitated, for several consecutive days. Recognizing that the environment was not healthy, the family bravely managed to carry the incredibly heavy, ruined mattress out of the beautiful house to spare Lana further distress. When Rosie finally managed to speak with Lana on the telephone later that sorrowful evening, she desperately sought to understand how her fiercely independent brother had become so profoundly ill without anyone knowing. Lana gently explained that he simply had not been feeling well for a few days. When Rosie asked why Lana had not reached out to call someone or alert the family to his severe condition, Lana softly replied that she believed he was actually starting to feel much better. Lana further explained that Steve had not called anyone himself because he had been sleeping very heavily and had unfortunately misplaced his cellular phone a full week earlier. This specific detail struck a discordant note with the family. Anyone who truly knew Steve knew that he was a man who was absolutely tethered to his communication devices. His phone went absolutely everywhere with him, a vital tool for his active social and business life. It was at this precise moment that a tiny, unsettling seed of doubt began to take root in the minds of his family, a quiet feeling that perhaps there was a missing piece to this tragic puzzle. Seeking further clarity on practical matters during this chaotic time, Steve's sister gently inquired with Lana regarding the status of Steve's last will and testament. Steve and Rosie had previously engaged in many serious, detailed discussions regarding his final wishes. He had explicitly expressed his deep desire to eventually be laid to rest in a beautiful, serene cemetery located back in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. However, when asked about these important legal documents, Lana surprisingly stated that there was absolutely no will to be found. Furthermore, Lana had already taken the initiative to make completely different final arrangements. She announced that Steve was scheduled to be cremated, and she was actively planning a memorial service to be held at their home. On August 4th, 2018, Lana hosted a beautiful, highly emotional memorial service for Steve. Every single person in attendance felt a profound, undeniable connection to the great man they had lost. It was incredibly difficult for anyone to maintain their composure, even though the gathering was expressly intended to be a joyous celebration of his remarkable life. The deep, heavy sorrow permeating the air was impossible to ignore. Friends spoke eloquently, acknowledging that if there was ever a time and a space where it was perfectly acceptable to be deeply sad and to shed tears, this was undoubtedly it. They gathered to celebrate a life that was undeniably well-lived, while simultaneously mourning its sudden conclusion. During the memorial gathering, Rosie and other family members were quite surprised to discover that Lana had already begun the process of clearing out Steve's personal belongings. They noticed that she had meticulously gathered all of his clothing and personal items and generously donated them entirely to the Department of Veterans Affairs. It was a visually striking and emotionally jarring experience for the family to look into his grand closet and see nothing but rows of completely empty hangers, without a single stitch of his vibrant wardrobe remaining. Furthermore, they noticed that many of his prize watches, his cherished jewelry, and most notably, his sacred wedding ring, were entirely missing from home. The assertion that Steve had passed away without a funeral will continue to raise significant questions among his closest confidants. Steve was, by his very nature and professional training as an accountant, an incredibly meticulous man regarding his finances and legal affairs. He had always stressed the vital importance of making absolutely sure that everything was in perfect order. To his family, there was simply no logical explanation for a man of his financial stature and organizational habits to simply neglect writing a will. Feeling a collective sense of unease, the family united and respectfully reached out to the local medical examiner's office. They requested that a thorough autopsy be conducted, or at the very absolute minimum, a comprehensive toxicology screening, just to ensure every stone was turned and every question answered. The medical authorities respectfully agreed to honor the family's earnest request. Detective Moats, a highly dedicated professional from the York County Sheriff's Office, was officially notified of the family's lingering questions regarding the exact circumstances surrounding Steve's sudden passing. The wheels of a quiet, methodical inquiry began to turn. When the initial autopsy report was finally completed, it formally listed visible signs of underlying heart disease and initially pointed toward a death by natural causes, specifically a cardiac event. This initial finding seemed to validate the coroner's very first impression at the scene. However, the final, definitive medical conclusion heavily depended on the highly detailed results of the pending toxicology report. The family was told it would take a few agonizing weeks before those specific scientific results would finally arrive. They waited with bated breath, feeling a deep, intuitive sense that there was a larger truth waiting to be gently uncovered. When the comprehensive toxicology report on Steve Clayton's blood was finally returned to the authorities, the scientific findings were truly astonishing. The delicate chemical analysis revealed the presence of several different sedative substances in his system. However, the most significant and shocking discovery was the presence of a chemical compound known as tetrahydrozoline. This specific substance is widely known as a primary active ingredient found in common, everyday over-the-counter eye drop medications. Medical experts quickly clarified that tetrahydrozoline is absolutely never meant to be ingested internally by a human being. When accidentally consumed in very small doses, it causes severe physical discomfort, leading to extreme nausea, profound dizziness, and eventual unconsciousness. However, when introduced into the human body in massive, concentrated quantities, it acts as a devastating systemic disruptor. It rapidly attacks the central nervous system and severely restricts the vital flow of blood to major organs, ultimately triggering a catastrophic and fatal cardiac event. The detectives carefully reviewed the visual evidence collected from the scene, specifically noting the body camera footage. They observed a bottle of eye drops resting on a tall, distant dresser located far away from the bed where Steve had been severely incapacitated. It was a location that Steve, in his weakened state, could not possibly have reached on his own. The scientific evidence painted a clear, undeniable picture. This was no longer considered a simple, natural death. Armed with this critical new medical information, Detective Moats understood that it was time to have another, much more detailed conversation with Lana Clayton. Exactly 5 weeks after the sudden loss of her husband, Lana sat down with the detectives. The investigators gently but firmly sought clarity regarding the various medications discovered in Steve's system. While Lana openly discussed other minor medications, she made absolutely no mention of the eye drops. The investigators knew that tetrahydrozoline is a particularly insidious substance because it is completely colorless, entirely odorless, and utterly tasteless. This makes it incredibly difficult for anyone to detect if it is secretly introduced into a beverage. The concentration of the chemical in Steve's blood was so incredibly high that the medical examiner stated it was definitively a massive, lethal dose. The detectives calmly pressed forward with their gentle but persistent questioning. They informed Lana that a significantly large amount of the eye drop chemical had been scientifically confirmed to be in Steve's system, and they simply needed to get to the absolute bottom of how it got there. Lana initially expressed surprise, stating that she knew he sometimes used the drops in his eyes, but claimed she only knew that ingesting it could cause mild stomach distress. As the authorities continued to deeply probe the complex dynamics of Steve and Lana's relationship, Lana began to share a different perspective on their marriage. She softly claimed that behind closed doors, Steve occasionally exhibited a darker, more difficult side. She described feeling as though she had to walk on eggshells around him, alleging that he could sometimes become verbally harsh and demanding. Following this deeply revealing interview, the detectives obtained a legal warrant to conduct a thorough, meticulous search of the massive lake house. They were specifically looking for any cups, glasses, or containers that might harbor microscopic residue of the chemical. They were searching for any concrete piece of evidence that could definitively explain this heartbreaking tragedy. During this period of intense investigation, Lana bravely made a pivotal decision. She reached out to the officers and explicitly requested to speak once again with Detective Moats. Sitting down with the recording devices activated, Lana began to unburden her heavy heart. She spoke tearfully about the intense emotional pressures of her marriage, claiming that her frustrations and silent anger had slowly built up over time until she felt completely overwhelmed. Then, in a moment of profound, sorrowful honesty, Lana dropped a massive emotional bombshell. She confessed that on that fateful day, feeling a surge of overwhelming anger and remembering a careless rumor she had heard from a co-worker about eye drops causing stomach upset, she made a terrible, impulsive decision. She admitted that she saw the small bottle resting on the table, picked it up, and forcefully squeezed the liquid directly into Steve's glass of drinking water. When the detective gently asked how much she had squeezed into the glass, she tearfully admitted that she squeezed the bottle hard, believing she had emptied the entire contents into his drink. She expressed deep, agonizing remorse, questioning aloud the catastrophic reality of what she had done. It was a complete and damning confession. However, the complex legal system required the detectives to meticulously organize their official paperwork before formally proceeding with an arrest. They quietly departed the residence that evening, fully prepared to return the very next morning to officially charge Lana Clayton. But the following morning brought yet another dramatic and heartbreaking twist to the story. The police received an urgent, frantic call from one of Lana's concerned neighbors. The neighbor had discovered deeply concerning letters left behind by Lana, indicating that she intended to harm herself. Overwhelmed by the crushing weight of her tragic actions, and knowing the authorities were returning, she had attempted to take her own life by turning on the gas and consuming medication. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, finding her unconscious in her bedroom. She was immediately transported to the local hospital, where dedicated medical professionals successfully treated and stabilized her. Upon her medical release, she was formally taken into custody by law enforcement on serious charges related to the incident. The devastating news of the confession and the subsequent arrest was immediately relayed to Steve's family. When Nick received a call from a York County detective informing him of Lana's full confession, he had to immediately pull his vehicle over to the side of the road. The sheer weight of the revelation hit him with an unimaginable physical force. He called Rosie, who screamed in pure, unadulterated shock upon hearing the undeniable truth. The legal process slowly unfolded over the next several months. Finally, on January 16th, 2020, seeking to avoid a lengthy and agonizing trial, Lana formally accepted a legally binding plea agreement. She stood before a judge and officially admitted her guilt to the serious charges of voluntary manslaughter and the tampering with a food product. Although the initial grand jury indictment had been for a much more severe charge, she accepted the lesser offense. Throughout the legal proceedings, Lana consistently maintained that she had absolutely never intended for Steve to lose his life. She tearfully insisted that her foolish, tragic actions were merely meant to cause him temporary discomfort in a misguided attempt to retaliate for what she perceived as poor treatment. However, Steve's fiercely loyal friends and loving family vehemently rejected any characterization of Steve as an abusive man. Countless individuals whose lives have been positively touched and uplifted by Steve's magnificent generosity came forward to proudly testify to his exceptional character. They described him as a deeply wonderful, kind, and profoundly gentle soul who was entirely incapable of harming another human being. The prosecution, heavily relying on the undeniable scientific timeline provided by the medical toxicologist, argued that Steve had suffered immensely over a period of 3 days, unable to seek help, while Lana, a fully trained medical nurse, chose not to intervene or call for emergency assistance until it was entirely too late. The presiding judge, having carefully weighed all the tragic facts and the profound loss of a magnificent human life, sentenced the 53-year-old Lana Clayton to serve a period of 25 years in a state prison facility. While the tragic circumstances surrounding his passing are deeply heartbreaking, the true essence of this story does not end in the darkness of a courtroom. It ends, rather, in the brilliant, enduring light of Steve Clayton's magnificent life and the beautiful legacy of love he left firmly planted in the hearts of everyone who knew him. The family recognized that the unearthing of the truth was a profound testament to the power of justice and their own unbreakable bond. They found deep solace in knowing that the truth had finally prevailed. They actively chose to turn their heavy hearts away from the bitterness of betrayal and instead focus entirely on the immense joy, the boundless laughter, and the extraordinary generosity that defined Steve's time on this earth. They remembered the man who gave away his wealth to help young entrepreneurs build their dreams. They remembered the devoted brother who stepped in to walk his little sister down the aisle with tears of pride shining in his eyes. They remembered the gigantic, lovable teddy bear who would happily crawl on the floor to play silly games with delighted children. When Rosie and the family gather now to remember him, they do not dwell on the sorrow of his final days. Instead, they choose to hear the joyful echo of his booming voice calling out hello, hello, hello across a crowded room. They miss his over-the-top personality, that magnificent, boisterous character that could enter any space and instantly fill it with radiant warmth and absolute pure joy. Steve Clayton was a truly amazing person, a shining example of how to live life with a wide-open heart and a generous spirit. Although he was taken from this world far too soon, the beautiful memories of his love, his incredible laughter, and his undeniable ability to light up any room remain a powerful, inspiring force. His story serves as a deeply moving reminder to cherish every single moment with our loved ones, to always seek the truth, and to ensure that love and joyous laughter are the final, lasting legacies we leave behind in this beautiful world. The bright Miami sun shone down on March 10th, 2007, casting a golden glow over a day that would forever be etched in the hearts of the Clayton family. It was a momentous occasion, a day of immense joy and tender memories. Rosie Clayton, a woman with a smile as radiant as the Florida weather, was finally marrying the love of her life, William Leslie. But as the music began to play, it was not just the groom waiting at the altar who captured the attention of the guests. Walking Rosie down the aisle was her older brother, 52-year-old Steve Clayton. 11 months prior to this beautiful wedding, the Clayton family had lost their beloved father. When Rosie asked her brother to step into their father's shoes for the ceremony, there were countless tears of gratitude. Rosie could not imagine anyone else standing in his place. When the officiant asked who gave the bride away, Steve stood tall, his chest swelling with pride, and declared that he did so in the loving memory of their father. It was a deeply sentimental gathering, turning a day of potential sorrow into a celebration of enduring family bonds. With their father now resting in peace, Steve had naturally become the head of the family. Even though he had never had children of his own, his paternal instincts were boundless. When their parents were first married, Steve was just a toddler, about 2 or 3 years old. He grew up surrounded by 4 sisters, with Rosie being the youngest, because he was 10 years older than her. There was never a moment in Rosie's life where Steve was not her guiding star. To her, Steve was a hero larger than life. He played football, wrestled in high school, and possessed an energy that could light up an entire city. After his high school years, Steve graduated from college with a degree in finance. He quickly matured into a brilliant and shrewd businessman. Alongside a partner, Steve started a company focused on physical therapy resources, which blossomed into a massive national enterprise with centers spread across the country. Through sheer determination and sharp intellect, he became incredibly successful. His ultimate goal had always been to retire by the age of 40. He missed his target by just 1 single year, gracefully retiring at 41. Selling his business freed Steve to pursue his true passions, and his greatest passion was giving back to the world. He spent his days mentoring young men and women, helping them launch their own businesses, and guiding them to find their true direction in life. Steve was endlessly generous, not just with his wealth, but with his time, his wisdom, and his heart. No matter how busy he kept himself with his philanthropic efforts, Steve always had time for his family. He was the undisputed life of every party. At Rosie's wedding, his booming voice and infectious laughter echoed across the banquet hall. He was always the first to stand up and give a toast. Speaking directly from his heart, without a single note, he would tease their Uncle Max, bringing roars of laughter from the crowd, playfully hiding his deep emotions behind a veil of brilliant humor. When he looked at William, his new brother-in-law, Steve thanked him for making his sister so incredibly happy, honoring their late father's wish to always protect and cherish her. Later that evening, Steve stepped onto the dance floor for the traditional father and daughter dance. Before the music even started, Steve had prepared a breathtaking surprise. He played a secret audio recording of their departed father, speaking loving words about his precious daughter. There was not a dry eye in the room. Steve flawlessly managed every duty that day. He was a father figure, the best man, the chief entertainer, and the calming presence that kept everyone smiling through their tears. Despite his massive success, his vast network of friends, and his unwavering family support, Steve's romantic life had always been a challenging journey. He was a man with a gigantic personality, seeking a partner who was just as determined, loving, and caring as he was. His family knew it would take a remarkably special woman to sweep a giant like Steve off his feet. He needed someone who could connect with him intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. 3 years later, the winds of change brought a beautiful new chapter to his story. In late 2009, Steve decided he needed a change of pace. He left his home state of Florida and moved to the lush, green landscapes of North Carolina. Steve had a profound love for the outdoors. He loved walking, breathing in the fresh air, and staying active. The beautiful nature of North Carolina offered him the perfect playground for his energetic spirit. Within just a few months of his arrival, Steve called his sister with a joy in his voice that she had not heard in years. He announced that he had met someone incredibly special. Her name was Lana Walsh. Lana was 12 years his junior, a dedicated and compassionate nurse who had grown up in the gentle plains of Oklahoma. When Rosie finally met Lana, she was struck by the wonderful contrast between the two. Lana was exceptionally sweet and remarkably quiet. This quietness stood out beautifully against Steve's booming, larger-than-life personality. Where Steve was a roaring fire of energy, Lana was a gentle, calming stream. She might have seemed like a wallflower at first glance, but she possessed a quiet strength and a heart overflowing with empathy. Steve was utterly captivated. They were always arm in arm, radiating warmth and affection. Steve could not hide his feelings, constantly hugging, squeezing, and kissing his beloved Lana. Rosie was overjoyed. Seeing her brother so grounded, so deeply at peace, meant the world to her. It was not long before Steve managed to convince Lana to move in with him. Using his legendary persuasive charm, he brought her to his home in Charlotte, and their life together truly began. They soon expanded their little family with the addition of 2 adorable dogs. First came Guinness, a delicate Italian greyhound. They fell in love with the breed so deeply that they soon welcomed a second dog named Sadie. With Lana, Steve finally found the missing piece of his soul. He affectionately called her his Lana Sue. Steve had moved to North Carolina looking for a change, and instead, he found a glorious new future. Years ago, while dancing at his sister's wedding, he had dreamed of finding his own special someone. Now he had found her. On a lovely day in November 2013, surrounded by family and friends who had traveled across the country, Steve and Lana were married. The ceremony took place at their beautiful house in Charlotte. It was an event bursting with pure, unadulterated love. Both the bride and the groom beamed with a happiness that touched the hearts of everyone present. Soon after exchanging their vows, the couple decided it was time to find their forever home. They relocated just over the border into South Carolina, settling into a breathtaking house on the banks of Lake Wylie. It looked like an image pulled straight from a fairy tale. The gorgeous ocean blue home sat perfectly on a stunning piece of lakefront property. Together, they poured their hearts into refurbishing the house, decorating it with Steve's cherished collection of artworks and antiques. Every object had a story, and Steve loved sharing those stories with anyone who visited. Living on the lake allowed the couple to fully indulge in their shared love of nature, whether it was boating, hiking, or simply watching the sunset over the water. Steve was always the first one out the door, eager for the next adventure. Their new home also brought them wonderfully close to Lana's family, just a 30-minute drive away from her son and her beautiful grandchildren. Steve absolutely adored being a grandfather figure. He was always a child at heart, and having kids around brought out the very best in him. He would happily get down on the floor to play games, completely ignoring his tailored clothes. Laughter constantly echoed through the lake house. Lana would often film Steve playing hilarious games with her twin granddaughters. He would attempt to do the limbo, twisting his tall frame under a stick, while the girls giggled endlessly, occasionally distracted by their ice cream. Whether they were playing board games or silly parlor tricks, Steve was a massive teddy bear, always covered in happy, clinging children. 5 glorious years into their marriage, Steve and Lana were thriving. Their home was a sanctuary of joy, hospitality, and endless love. But every great journey has its little bumps in the road, and in June 2018, a comical but exhausting hurdle presented itself. Steve, the man who seemed invincible, suddenly caught a terrible bout of vertigo paired with a wildly dramatic stomach bug. For a man used to running businesses and lifting weights, being confined to his bed Feeling dizzy was a tremendous challenge. He tried to brush it off, stubbornly attempting to mow the lawn, only to end up feeling nauseous and stumbling back inside. Lana, utilizing all her expertise and endless patience as a professional nurse, immediately took charge. She ordered the stubborn giant into bed. Steve complained loudly, insisting he was perfectly fine, even as the room spun around him. He was, by all accounts, the absolute worst patient in the world. He misplaced his beloved cell phone in the blankets, groaned about the lack of spicy food on his new bland diet, and dramatically declared that a 36-hour nap was a sign of his fading youth. Rosie called to check on him, slightly worried because her brother never missed a phone call. Lana answered with a warm, exhausted laugh, explaining that the great Steve Clayton was currently being defeated by a simple stomach virus and the absolute necessity of drinking plain water. Lana lovingly catered to his every need, bringing him fresh blankets, endless cups of herbal tea, and ensuring he stayed hydrated, strictly hiding his coffee until his stomach settled. There was a brief moment of hilarious panic when Lana discovered that Steve, in his dizzy state, had accidentally attempted to put his eye drops in his mouth, thinking it was liquid breath mints. Lana had caught him just in time, scolded him gently, and placed all non-edible liquids strictly out his reach. The household turned into a humorous battle of wills between the stubborn, energetic husband who wanted to go outside and the sweet, firm nurse who demanded he rest. Thanks to Lana's unwavering care and exceptional nursing skills, Steve made a spectacular and complete recovery within a couple of weeks. He emerged from his bedroom feeling rejuvenated, deeply humbled by his wife's patience, and more in love with her than ever before. To celebrate his return to perfect health, Steve insisted on throwing the most magnificent 4th of July party the lake had ever seen. The house was adorned with bright decorations. The smell of barbecue drifted over the sparkling blue water, and the lawn was filled with family, friends, and laughing children. As the evening approached and the sky began to turn brilliant shades of pink and orange, Steve stood on the grand patio overlooking the lake. He clinked his glass, calling for the attention of the crowd. The chatter died down, and all eyes turned to the man who brought them all together. Steve looked at the crowd, his eyes shimmering with happy tears. He looked at Rosie, remembering their dance so many years ago. He looked at the grandchildren chasing the 2 dogs across the grass. And finally, he looked at Lana, his quiet, beautiful anchor. He raised his glass high, his voice booming with the joy of a life truly well lived. He spoke of the importance of family, the beauty of second chances, and the profound blessing of finding someone who loves you enough to put up with you when you are a terrible, grumpy patient. The crowd erupted into laughter and applause. As the fireworks began to burst overhead, reflecting in the calm waters of Lake Wylie, Steve pulled Lana close, kissing her deeply under the colorful sky. There were no mysteries, no tragedies, and no early farewells. There was only a generous man, a loving woman, and a beautiful, endless summer ahead of them, filled with light laughter and an unshakable love. This is the story of a successful and generous businessman who meets a gentle nurse with a heart as big as his own. When they first crossed paths, she struck everyone as being exceptionally quiet, but deeply sweet and remarkably kind. He, on the other hand, was a man of boundless energy and boisterous laughter. He fell head over heels, completely unable to hide the profound feelings he harbored for her. He was very much in love. When a sudden and frightening illness later threatened to consume their peaceful marriage, they discovered that while wealth offers no protection against the natural frailties of the human body, true love and unwavering dedication can conquer the darkest of days. The story truly begins in a moment of pure celebration. It is the 10th of March, 2007, in the sunny, vibrant city of Miami, Florida. It is a monumental day for a radiant bride named Rosemary Clayton, known affectionately to everyone as Rosie and her entire family. She is finally marrying the love of her life, William Leslie. The air is filled with the scent of tropical flowers and the soft melodies of a string quartet. But the most touching sight of the day is Rosie being proudly walked down the aisle by her oldest brother, 52-year-old Steve Clayton. Just 11 months prior to this joyous wedding day, the Clayton family had lost their beloved father. Navigating the grief of that loss was a heavy burden. And when the time came to plan the wedding, Rosie knew exactly who she needed by her side. She asked her brother if he would step in to fulfill the traditional duties of the father of the bride. Naturally, the request was met with an abundance of tears, a shared emotional release that solidified their unbreakable sibling bond. Rosie could not imagine anybody else standing in place for her father. When the officiant asked who gives this woman to be married to this man, Steve stood tall, his voice thick with emotion, and proudly declared his blessing in the loving memory of their father. It was a deeply sentimental experience for the family to be gathered at an event so special, acutely aware of the spaces left behind by those who had passed, yet profoundly grateful for the love that remained. With their father's passing, Steve had naturally transitioned into the role of the head of the family, although he had never had children of his own up to that point in his life. He had always been a steadfast father figure to his younger siblings. When their father and mother were first married, Steve was just about 2 or 3 years old. The family eventually grew to include 4 sisters, with Rosie being the youngest of the bunch. Because Steve was 10 years older than Rosie, there was never a single moment in her life when her big brother was not a guiding presence. To Rosie, Steve was not just a sibling. He was her hero. He embodied everything a little girl would ever want in an older brother. He played football with fierce dedication. He wrestled throughout his high school years, and his athletic prowess made him seem completely larger than life to his adoring little sister. After graduating from high school, Steve pursued higher education with the same relentless drive he applied to sports. He graduated from college with a comprehensive degree in finance and quickly matured into a shrewd, visionary businessman, driven by a desire to help others heal. Steve partnered with a trusted colleague to start a healthcare company called Physical Therapy Resources. Through years of dedication, strategic planning, and an unwavering commitment to patient care, that small venture eventually blossomed into a massive national company, boasting state-of-the-art physical therapy centers located all over the country. Steve was highly successful, eventually selling his primary interest in his business to transition into a new phase of life. Basically, from that point onward, he was retired. His lifelong goal had been to retire at the age of 40. Though he missed his ambitious target by exactly 1 year, retiring at the age of 41 was a triumph that few could ever hope to achieve. Selling his lucrative business freed up Steve to do whatever his heart desired. And what his generous heart wanted to do most was give back to the world. He dedicated a massive portion of his newly found free time to mentoring a large group of young men and women. He guided them with patience and wisdom, helping them start up their own businesses, navigate the complex world of finance, and figure out exactly what direction they wanted their lives to take. Steve was exceptionally generous, sharing not only his considerable financial resources, but more importantly, his precious time. Above all else, Steve always had time for his family. During family gatherings, Rosie would often film Steve as he playfully teased their Uncle Max, his booming laughter echoing through the halls. It was a special dynamic. Their late father had not been quite so naturally funny. He was a much more serious man, focused on providing and protecting. Steve inherited his father's protective nature, but added a layer of radiant joy and humor. He was always the life of the party. At Rosie's wedding reception, it was Steve's magnificent good humor that truly made him the soul of the occasion. When it was time for the speeches, Steve was the very first person to jump out of the seat. He grabbed the microphone with a wide, beaming smile. His opening line, a boisterous and echoing greeting of hello, 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 immediately captured the room. His toasts were never written down on stiff note cards. They were always completely ad-libbed, flowing directly from his massive heart. He often used humor as a gentle shield, a charming way of stepping back from the overwhelming emotional weight of the day. He turned to his new brother-in-law, William, and offered his deepest gratitude for making his sister so incredibly happy. Then Steve's voice softened. He shared a private memory with the guests, recalling how their father, shortly before he passed away, had told Steve to always take care of his sister and to honor the family. Steve looked at Rosie, tears shining in his eyes, and told her how much she was loved. After a brief moment of heavy emotion, he quickly pivoted back to his signature humor, bringing a wave of laughter to the teary-eyed crowd. He celebrated William and Rosie as great companions and perfect partners, noting that he had never seen his little sister look happier. After the speeches concluded, Steve stepped onto the dance floor for the traditional father and daughter dance. He approached Rosie, took her hands, and they prepared to sway to the music. But before the band could play a single note, Steve orchestrated a powerfully moving surprise. He had managed to find a precious audio recording of their dearly departed father. The whole room fell utterly silent as the father's voice echoed through the speakers, expressing his deep love for his daughter, reminiscing about the days when she was just a little girl climbing on his knee and telling her how much he missed those innocent times. It was the most beautiful gift a brother could give. Steve had so many crucial duties that day. He acted as a father. He served as the best man. He provided the comedic entertainment. And he was the emotional anchor that kept everyone calm, laughing, and focused on love. He was an absolute natural at bringing people together. Despite his immense professional success and his beautifully close network of family and friends, Steve's own romantic life had historically been somewhat rocky. He possessed a very specific vision for his future. He looked for a romantic partner who was as focused, determined, loving, and deeply caring as he was. As anyone who has searched for true love knows, that is a remarkably tall order to fill. Now 52 years old, his family figured it would take a truly spectacular and special person to finally sweep him off his feet. They knew Steve was always looking for somebody on a profound level, a woman he could connect with emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. 3 years later, that magical connection finally happened. In late 2009, Steve decided it was time to leave his familiar home state of Florida for a much-needed change of pace. He set his sights on the lush landscapes of North Carolina. Steve really loved being physical. He loved taking long walks, breathing in the fresh air, and engaging in absolutely anything that had to do with being outdoors. When he moved from the flat, tropical environment of South Florida to the rolling, wooded hills of North Carolina, he found himself presented with endless opportunities to be outside and connect with nature. Within just a few short months of settling into his new state, Steve joyfully announced to his family that he had met someone incredibly special. During video calls with his sisters, he seemed to possess a bright, unmistakable glow that had been missing from his eyes for quite a while. He was visibly excited. The woman who had captured his heart was named Lana Walsh. She was 12 years his junior, a dedicated and compassionate professional nurse who had grown up in the quiet plains of Oklahoma. When Rosie and the rest of the family finally met Lana, she struck them as being extraordinarily sweet. She was very quiet, providing a fascinating contrast to Steve, who was notoriously loud and energetic. This quiet nature stood out prominently because Steve's personality was simply gigantic. She was more like a delicate wallflower, perfectly content to listen and observe while Steve held court and entertained the room. Despite their obvious outward differences, Steve was absolutely certain that she was the one he had been waiting for his entire life. The two of them were always highly affectionate with each other, constantly walking arm in arm. Steve was always seen hugging her gently, squeezing her hand reassuringly, and kissing her forehead. Rosie felt an immense wave of happiness for her older brother. Naturally, anybody that her brother loved so dearly, she was going to embrace with wide open arms. It was not long at all before Steve asked his beloved Lana to officially move in with him. After they had spent countless hours getting to know each other on a much deeper level, Steve gently persuaded her to relocate to Charlotte. As his family fondly noted, Steve could be an incredibly convincing salesman when he truly believed in something. To make their new shared house truly feel like a home, they decided to add some delightful new additions to the family. The first dog that Steve and Lana adopted together was a beautiful, slender Italian greyhound they named Guinness. They instantly fell in love with the affectionate, quirky breed, and shortly thereafter, they decided that Guinness needed a sibling. They brought home a second Italian greyhound, a sweet little girl they named Sadie. With Lana and the dogs by his side, Steve finally felt that he had found his missing piece in the puzzle of life. He always had the most wonderful things to say about her to his friends and family. He affectionately referred to her as his Lana Sue. He simply could not hide the overflowing feelings he had for her. He was visibly, deeply, and undeniably in love. Steve's family felt that he had finally found himself beautifully well grounded with Lana. They sensed that he had discovered a profound sense of inner peace that all his business success had never been able to provide. Steve Clayton had originally traveled to North Carolina, simply seeking a change from his old routine. But instead, he found a whole new, beautiful future. Years ago, when Steve Clayton danced with his sister at her wedding, he had quietly dreamed of one day finding his own special someone to share his life with. Now, 6 wonderful years after that fateful wedding, he was finally preparing to marry the absolute love of his life, a dedicated nurse for the Department of Veterans Affairs named Lana Walsh. It was a perfectly lovely, crisp day in November of 2013. Dozens of family members and close friends traveled across the country to North Carolina just to be present and share in the immense joy of that day with him. Steve, true to his generous nature, went out of his way to make the event incredibly special and comfortable for every single guest. Lana and Steve's wedding ceremony took place right at their beautiful house in Charlotte. It was such a breathtaking and intimate event. Every guest in attendance could clearly see the pure, unadulterated love beaming from both of their faces. They were a perfect match, balancing each other in a beautiful harmony of quiet strength and joyful exuberance. Soon after tying the knot, the happy couple decided to relocate once more, this time to purchase and settle into their ultimate forever home. They found a stunning property just over the border in South Carolina, nestled peacefully on the serene banks of Lake Wylie. The house looked like an image pulled directly from a luxury travel postcard. It was a gorgeous, ocean blue home sitting on a perfectly manicured piece of lush lakefront property. It was truly lovely. The couple enthusiastically set about refurbishing their new shared space, carefully decorating the sprawling rooms with Steve's extensive collection of unique artworks and rare antiques. Steve was the kind of person who viewed objects as deeply personal artifacts. He was very proud of his curated possessions because each one was unique in some special way and carried a story. The move to the lake allowed the adventurous couple to fully indulge in their shared love of nature and the great outdoors. If there was ever something fun and outdoors to do, whether it was kayaking, hiking, or simply watching the sunrise over the water, Steve was guaranteed to be the first one there, entirely gung-ho about the experience. Furthermore, their strategic relocation to South Carolina meant that the pair were now significantly closer to several members of Steve's extended family. His nephew, Nick, who had married into family in 2010, lived nearby. Nick and his wife frequently hung out with Steve and Lana after they moved up to the lake. They would often go out to lovely dinners together, attend vibrant outdoor music concerts, and gather for every single special holiday event. The lake house was also conveniently located just a short 30-minute drive from Lana's son and her precious grandchildren. The pair absolutely never said no to a bit of energetic babysitting. Steve possessed a remarkable, natural way with children because he had always been a joyful child at heart. He was exactly the kind of guy who would willingly get right down on the floor to play imaginative games with the kids. He would sing songs, build block towers, and make silly faces until the children were roaring with laughter, with the grandchildren running around. There was truly never a single dull moment in the Clayton household. During one memorable family visit, Lana happily filmed Steve attempting to playfully describe the rules of the limbo game while her adorable twin granddaughters watched in utter fascination. Steve dramatically demonstrated how to bend backward, explaining that there would be a stick, and he would have to get incredibly low to pass underneath it without letting his back touch the floor. He patiently explained to the girls that it was a game, a special kind of dance, and encouraged them to join the fun. Lana was completely tickled by his theatrical performance, laughing softly from behind the camera. Even though the twin girls momentarily seemed a bit more interested in finishing their sweet bowls of ice cream than learning the mechanics of the limbo. Steve thoroughly enjoyed playing all kinds of games with his family, whether it was a highly competitive, intellectual round of Scrabble or completely silly, plastic children's game involving spinners and levers. He committed to the fun with his whole heart. He was a huge, lovable teddy bear, and the children absolutely adored playing with him. He almost always had at least one kid happily hanging onto his arm or climbing on his back. And Lana was always perfectly game for some fun alongside him, creating a warm, nurturing environment where everyone felt deeply cherished and wonderfully at home. They celebrated their days by clinking their glasses together, toasting to their good health and their beautiful family. 5 incredibly happy years into their marriage, Steve and Lana appear to be absolutely thriving in every possible way. However, life often presents unexpected challenges to test the strength of our foundations. In June of 2018, Steve suddenly and unexpectedly fell seriously ill while working out under the hot sun in his beloved garden. He began to feel intensely dizzy, complaining to Lana about a severe sense of vertigo. He mentioned that his ear was aching sharply and that a wave of nausea had washed over him. The heat of the day and his relentless exertion had finally taken a toll. He suddenly collapsed onto the soft grass of the yard, completely overwhelmed by the spinning sensation. Lana, observing the situation through the kitchen window, rushed out with a heart full of panic, but a mind trained for medical emergencies. She saw the man she loved more than anything looking pale and incredibly vulnerable. As a highly trained and experienced nurse, Lana instantly knew that she needed to remain calm and assess the situation methodically. Steve, trying to brush off the severity of the moment, mumbled that he must have simply gotten a touch of sunstroke from working too hard. He was deeply disoriented. Lana gently but firmly helped him to his feet, supporting his considerable weight as she carefully guided him out of the sweltering heat and back into the cool, safe sanctuary of their home. Once inside, Lana's extensive medical training truly shined, becoming the ultimate blessing of their marriage. She recognized that Steve was suffering from a severe episode of acute vertigo, likely exacerbated by extreme dehydration and exhaustion. She helped him into their comfortable bed, ensuring he was positioned safely to prevent any further dizziness or injury. Steve later recalled that after laying his heavy head on the cool pillow, the next time he fully opened his eyes and felt a sense of clarity, an astonishing 36 hours had passed. During that critical window of time, Lana did not leave his side for a single moment, worried sick about her brother. Rosie called the house to see if she could get an explanation for Steve's mysterious and sudden illness. She asked Lana what she thought was going on, noting correctly that it is very unusual for an otherwise healthy, energetic person to simply lose 36 hours of time to sleep. Lana, projecting a calm, professional demeanor to soothe her sister-in-law, explained the situation thoroughly. She assured Rosie that Steve was going to be absolutely fine, that he was simply suffering from severe exhaustion and inner ear imbalance, and that she was personally watching his every breath and monitoring his vital signs around the clock. Though Steve had never been taken down by an illness quite like this before in his life, Lana's expert opinion was that his larger-than-life energy and his tendency to push his body to its absolute limits were finally catching up with him. Rosie, listening to the steady confidence in Lana's voice, felt deeply reassured. She knew that Lana was there to take care of him in every possible way, and she gave thanks for Lana's profound medical knowledge as a nurse. It was an educational moment for the entire family, a stark reminder that even the strongest among us must listen to their bodies, stay hydrated, and allow themselves the grace of true rest. Lana implemented a strict regimen of hydration, balanced electrolytes, and absolute quiet. She meticulously checked his blood pressure, ensured he was consuming easily digestible nutrients, and provided the kind of tender, loving care that only a devoted spouse can offer. She understood the delicate mechanics of the human body and knew that patience, rather than panic, was the best medicine. Her quiet, sweet nature, which had so charmed Steve when they first met, now proved to be the exact calming presence he needed to heal his overwhelmed nervous system. Just 2 short weeks later, it became abundantly clear that Lana's diligent, loving treatment had worked an absolute miracle. Steve bounded down the grand staircase of their lake house, completely back to his vibrant old self. His color had fully returned. His booming laughter echoed off the walls once more, and he was bursting with an urgent desire to celebrate life, to mark his triumphant return to health, and to express his profound gratitude for the woman who had nursed him back from the brink of exhaustion. Steve decided to throw an absolutely massive party for the 4th of July. That summer party was every bit as spectacular and joyful as every other legendary gathering they had hosted at the lake house. The property was adorned with beautiful decorations. The smell of wonderful food drifted through the warm evening air, and the sound of music and laughter drifted out over the sparkling water of Lake Wylie. Steve was his normal, highly affectionate self, greeting every single guest with a massive bear hug and a joyous shout. Everyone in attendance had a truly magnificent time, relieved and thrilled to see their favorite uncle, brother, and friend looking so healthy and happy. As the sun began to set, casting brilliant shades of orange and pink across the sky, Steve signaled for the music to change to a slow, romantic melody. He walked purposefully across the patio and gently grabbed Lana by the hand. Without a single word, he pulled her into a deep, loving embrace, and the two of them began to dance slowly under the twilight sky. The rest of the family, moved by the beautiful display of devotion, quickly followed suit, grabbing their own partners and joining in the dance. Watching them move together, completely in sync and entirely in love, it was obvious to everyone present that things were incredibly good at the Clayton home. Steve leaned down and kissed his wife tenderly, silently thanking her for her strength, her knowledge, and her unwavering care during his moment of weakness. Their bond had been tested by the unexpected trials of health and aging, but they had emerged from the shadows stronger, closer, and more deeply committed to one another than ever before. No one looking at them on that beautiful July evening harbored a single doubt that Lana and Steve's lives together were destined to be remarkably happy, wonderfully long, and filled with endless chapters of joy, laughter, and profound, enduring love. The warm breeze of Miami swept through the air on March 10th, 2007, carrying with it the unmistakable feeling of joy and new beginnings. It was a momentous day for the Clayton family, a day painted with the bright colors of love and commitment. Rosemary Clayton, affectionately known to everyone as Rosie, was preparing to marry the love of her life, William Leslie. The atmosphere was a beautiful blend of nervous excitement and deep, resonant happiness. Yet, beneath the surface of the celebratory cheers and the clinking of glasses, there was a tender undercurrent of remembrance. Just 11 months prior to this beautiful wedding day, the Clayton family had bid a tearful farewell to their beloved father. His absence was a profound physical void, but his spirit seemed to gently envelop the gathering. In her father's physical absence, Rosie had asked the one man who had always stood as a pillar of strength in her life to walk her down the aisle. That man was her older brother, 52-year-old Steve Clayton. When she had made the request, tears had flowed freely between them. For Rosie, there was simply no other choice. No one else she could ever imagine standing in the place of her father. As the music swelled and the guests stood in quiet reverence, Steve offered his arm to his sister. When the officiant asked who gave this woman to be married to this man, Steve's voice was clear, strong, and deeply emotional as he answered that he did, in the loving memory of their father. It was a sentimental, incredibly powerful moment, grounding the joy of the day in the deep roots of family loyalty. With their father's passing, Steve had naturally stepped into the role of the patriarch. Although he had never had children of his own, he possessed a vast paternal heart that he generously shared with his siblings. He was 10 years older than Rosie, the youngest of 4 sisters. From the very beginning of her memory, Steve had been a constant, comforting presence. He was her big brother, her personal hero. In high school, he had played football and wrestled, casting a larger-than-life shadow that made little Rosie look up to him with sheer awe. He was everything a little girl could ever want in an older brother: protective, funny, strong, and unfailingly kind. Steve's journey into adulthood was marked by brilliant success. After graduating from college with a degree in finance, he quickly matured into a remarkably shrewd and visionary businessman. Along with a trusted partner, Steve founded a company called Physical Therapy Resources. What started as a focused endeavor eventually blossomed into a massive national enterprise, establishing physical therapy centers across the entire country. His work ethic was matched only by his charisma. He had actually met his sister's husband at work, while recovering in a hospital where they crossed paths, sparking a friendship that would eventually lead to a beautiful family union. Steve was phenomenally successful, eventually selling his interest in the booming business. His lifelong goal had been to retire at the age of 40. He missed that ambitious mark by just 1 year, retiring proudly at the age of 41. Retirement for Steve Clayton did not mean a life of idle sitting. Selling his business completely freed him up to do exactly what his heart desired most: giving back to the world. Steve possessed an extraordinary spirit of generosity. He began mentoring a large group of young men, offering them his time, his profound business wisdom, and his endless encouragement. He helped them start up their own businesses, patiently guiding them as they figure out the direction they wanted their lives to take. He was a man who believed that true wealth was measured by how much he could uplift others. Above all, Steve always had time for his family. He was the undisputed life and soul of every gathering. Whether he was playfully teasing their Uncle Max on camera or delivering a heartfelt speech, Steve brought light into the room. During Rosie's wedding reception, Steve was the very first person to jump out of his seat to offer a toast, grabbing the microphone with his trademark booming voice and saying his signature, "Hello, hello, hello." He immediately captured the room's attention. His speeches were never scripted. They poured directly from his expansive heart. He used humor as a gentle shield to navigate his deep emotions, joking with William to avoid crying, before shifting to a tone of absolute sincerity. He spoke of their father's dying wish, promising to take care of Rosie and to honor the love that bound their family together. Raising his glass, he celebrated the couple as great companions and partners, noting with a bright smile that he had never seen his sister happier. The evening was crowned by a surprise that left not a single dry eye in the venue. As Steve stepped onto the dance floor for the traditional father and daughter dance, a secret recording of their departed father began to play over the speakers. The voice from the past spoke of the best moments of his life, recalling a young Rosie climbing on his knee and declaring her love. It was a moment of pure, transcendent emotion. Throughout that magical day, Steve wore many hats. He was a father figure, the best man, the chief entertainer, the calming presence, and the source of endless laughter. It was a role he played naturally and perfectly. Despite his immense professional success and his incredibly close network of family and friends, Steve's own romantic journey had been somewhat rocky. He possessed a giant personality and held himself to high standards, always searching for a partner who was as focused, determined, loving, and caring as he was. It was a tall order to fill. Now in his early 50s, his family often mused that it would take a very special, remarkable person to sweep their beloved brother off his feet. He was seeking a profound connection on every possible level, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. 3 years after the wedding, a new chapter opened in Steve's life. Seeking a change of pace and a deeper connection with nature, Steve decided to leave the familiar sunshine of Florida and move to the scenic landscapes of North Carolina. Steve loved physical activity, walking outdoors, and immersing himself in the beauty of the natural world. This new environment provided the perfect backdrop for a fresh start. Within just a few months of his move, Steve joyfully announced to his family that he had finally met someone special. He practically glowed with a renewed energy and excitement that his family had not seen in a long time. Her name was Lana Walsh, 12 years his junior. She was a nurse who had grown up in the quiet expanses of Oklahoma. To Steve's family, she appeared very sweet and remarkably quiet. This quietness stood out starkly against Steve's gigantic, room-filling personality. While Steve was a roaring fire, Lana seemed to be the calm, observant wallflower. Yet, despite their contrasting demeanors, Steve was absolutely certain that she was the one. They were incredibly affectionate, always walking arm in arm. Steve was constantly hugging her, squeezing her hand, and making his affection known to the world. Seeing her brother so happy, Rosie and the rest of the family eagerly embraced Lana, grateful that Steve had found his missing piece. It was not long before Steve asked Lana to move in with him. His persuasive charm easily convinced her to relocate to Charlotte. Together, they began building a life, adding new, joyful additions to their household. They adopted Guinness, a sleek Italian greyhound, and because they fell so deeply in love with the breed, they soon brought home another dog named Sadie. Steve affectionately referred to his partner as his Lana Sue. He was hopelessly, deeply in love, and his family felt that he had finally found a profound sense of peace and grounding. In November 2013, surrounded by the warm colors of autumn, Steve and Lana officially tied the knot. The beautiful wedding took place at their home in Charlotte. Family members traveled from all over to share in the joy of the day. The love between the couple was palpable, beaming brightly for all to see. Soon after the wedding, they decided to find their ultimate forever home. They crossed the border into South Carolina and purchased a breathtaking, ocean blue home situated right on the peaceful banks of Lake Wylie. It looked like a photograph from a luxury travel magazine. The couple enthusiastically set about refurbishing their new sanctuary, decorating the expansive rooms with Steve's cherished collection of artworks and antiques. Every object Steve owned held a personal story, and he took immense pride in his unique possessions. Their life on the lake was idyllic, allowing them to fully indulge in their love for the great outdoors. Whether it was boating or simply enjoying the fresh air, Steve was always the first one ready for an adventure. The move also brought them closer to Lana's son and her beloved twin granddaughters. Steve, who had always been a child of heart, embraced the role of a grandfather figure with unbridled enthusiasm. He would happily get down on the floor, playing silly games, attempting clumsy limbo dances, and entertaining the children until they were in fits of giggles. The Clayton household was filled with laughter, games of Scrabble, and the joyful noise of family truly living in the moment. For 5 wonderful years, their marriage appeared to be a picture of thriving happiness. However, in June of 2018, a sudden shadow fell over the sunlit home. Steve unexpectedly fell deeply ill. He complained of severe dizziness and vertigo, experiencing ear pain and terrible nausea. The illness struck him suddenly while he was working out in his beloved garden. Believing it was perhaps a severe case of sunstroke, he went upstairs to rest. According to the account shared later, Steve fell into such a deep sleep that he completely lost 36 hours of time. Naturally worried, Rosie called Lana to check on her brother. A sudden, prolonged loss of consciousness was highly unusual for anyone, let alone someone as vibrant as Steve. Lana reassured the family that she was keeping a close watch on him and that he was simply exhausted. Given Lana's professional background as a nurse, the family felt a comforting sense of reassurance. They believed Steve was in the most capable, caring hands possible. It seemed that Steve's larger-than-life energy was simply demanding a much-needed pause. Within 2 weeks, it appeared that the rest and care had worked a miracle. Steve bounced back to his old, radiant self enthusiastically hosting a grand party for the 4th of July. The gathering was as spectacular as any event Steve had ever thrown. He was his normal, highly affectionate self, dancing joyfully with Lana and ensuring every guest felt like royalty. Seeing them embrace and laugh on the dance floor, nobody in the world could have doubted that their future held anything but long, happy years together. But the light of that beautiful summer was tragically extinguished just weeks later. On July 21st, 2018, a distressing call was placed at the York County 911 dispatch. When police units arrived at the gorgeous lakeside home, they walked through the front door to find a heartbreaking scene. Steve Clayton, the man who had lifted so many people up throughout his life, lay lifeless at the bottom of the grand staircase. Sergeant Day, one of the responding officers, gently approached Lana, who was waiting just around the corner, appearing deeply distraught. Lana recounted that Steve had been suffering from terrible vertigo for 2 days. She explained that he had become dizzy, collapsed, and that she had struggled to help him upstairs. She claimed that she had been outside briefly, mowing the lawn, and upon returning, discovered the tragic accident. She described her frantic attempts to make him comfortable, explaining that her panic drove her to run outside and flag down a passing motorcyclist to call for emergency help. The news traveled quickly, shattering the peace of Steve's extended family. His nephew, Nick French, who served as a police officer himself, received the devastating phone call from his mother. The disbelief was overwhelming. How could a man so full of life suddenly be gone? Rosie, who was hundreds of miles away, felt her world stop when the phone rang. The family immediately rallied, their first thoughts turning to Lana, wanting to comfort the woman who had just lost her husband. Initially, the circumstances seemed to point to a tragic, natural accident. Lana suggested that Steve's severe vertigo had caused him to tumble down the stairs. The coroner, finding no immediate signs of a struggle or physical trauma consistent with a violent fall, hypothesized that Steve might have suffered a fatal heart attack, noting specific coloration on his chest. It seemed to be a tragic twist of fate, the day the heavens decided to call a good man home. However, as the family gathered to help clean the house and support Lana, deeply unsettling details began to emerge. When Nick and his family went upstairs to tidy the master bedroom, they were confronted with a deeply concerning state of neglect. The mattress was severely soiled, indicating that Steve had been incapacitated and unwell in that bed for several days. A stark contrast to the timeline that had been suggested. Steve, known for his meticulous nature and cleanliness, would never have willingly remained in such a state unless he was completely powerless to move. Rosie's conversations with Lana added to the growing sense of unease. When asked why no one was called when Steve was so ill, Lana offered vague explanations, claiming his phone had been misplaced for a week. To Rosie, this was unimaginable. Steve was a modern businessman who kept his phone tethered to his side at all times. The inconsistencies began to weave a troubling narrative. The most alarming revelation came when the topic of Steve's final wishes was raised. Steve had always been impeccably organized, and he had explicitly discussed his desire to be laid to rest in a specific, beautiful cemetery in Fort Lauderdale. Yet, Lana shocked the family by declaring there was no will and that she had already arranged for an immediate cremation and a memorial service at the house. The memorial service on August 4th, 2018, was a highly emotional gathering. The house was filled with friends and family whose lives had been deeply touched by Steve's boundless generosity. While the intention was to celebrate a life wonderfully lived, a heavy cloud of sorrow and suspicion hung in the air. The family's unease multiplied when they realized Lana had already begun rapidly clearing out Steve's personal belongings, donating his clothes to the Veterans Affairs office, and boxing up his life. Hangers stood completely bare in the closets. Precious watches, cherished jewelry, and even his wedding ring were conspicuously missing. Driven by their deep love for Steve and an unshakable intuition that the truth was being hidden, the family took decisive action. They understood the logic of the man they loved. An accountant and a meticulous planner, would never leave his estate in chaos without a will. They contacted the medical examiner's office, passionately requesting an autopsy and a comprehensive toxicology report. Detective Moats of the York County Sheriff's Office was alerted to the family's profound concerns. The waiting period was an agonizing test of endurance for the family. The initial autopsy results still suggested a heart event, but the final truth rested in the hands of the toxicologist. When the comprehensive report finally arrived, it sent shockwaves through the investigative team. The blood work revealed traces of various sedatives. But the most jarring discovery was an absolutely lethal, massive concentration of tetrahydrozoline. This substance, common in over-the-counter eye drops, is colorless, odorless, and tasteless, but highly toxic when ingested in large amounts. It acts rapidly to shut down the central nervous system, mimicking the exact symptoms of a severe heart attack. The pieces of the puzzle aggressively snapped into place. The authorities noted that a bottle of these specific eye drops was placed on a high dresser, far out of reach for a man incapacitated in bed. This was no natural death. It was a deliberate, silent poisoning. 5 weeks after the tragedy, detectives brought Lana in for questioning. They meticulously navigated the conversation, asking about the medications found in Steve's system. When the toxic substance was brought to light, the facade began to crack. Lana attempted to paint a different picture of her marriage, alleging that behind closed doors, Steve was verbally abusive and explosive. However, this narrative starkly contradicted everything known by the people who truly loved and respected him. Steve was a gentle soul, a mentor, a man fundamentally incapable of the cruelty she described. As the pressure mounted and the evidence became insurmountable, Lana finally offered chilling confession. She admitted to squeezing an entire bottle of the eye drops into Steve's drinking water. She claimed it was an act of momentary anger, a misguided attempt to cause him extreme discomfort, insisting she never intended for the dose to be fatal. But the scientific facts provided by the toxicologist painted a far more sinister reality. The timeline of Steve's suffering indicated a methodical, sustained administration of the poison over a period of 3 days. The realization that he had been left helpless, without a phone, systematically weakened by the person he trusted most, was a profound tragedy. The swift action of the authorities prevented further injustice. Lana was arrested and ultimately faced the full weight of the legal system. In January of 2020, she accepted a plea deal, admitting guilt to charges of voluntary manslaughter and tampering with a food product. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison. While the prosecution and the family firmly believed the act was driven by a cold desire for financial gain, knowing that without a will, the entire estate would default to spouse, they chose not to let anger consume their lives. The truth had prevailed. Thanks to the unwavering dedication of Steve's family and the diligent work of the investigators. If it were not for the family's deep knowledge of Steve's character and their persistent demand for an autopsy, the truth might remain forever buried beneath the tranquil waters of Lake Wylie. The loss of Steve Clayton was a monumental blow to everyone who had the privilege of knowing him. His family deeply missed his roaring laughter, his booming voice cutting through a crowded room, and his unparalleled ability to make every single person feel special and valued. But even in the face of such profound betrayal, Steve's legacy of love, generosity, and joy could never be erased. This story, while born from a tragic crime, ultimately stands as a powerful testament to the enduring strength of family bonds and the absolute triumph of truth. Steve Clayton's life was not defined by his final days, but by the countless days he spent uplifting others, sharing his wealth of knowledge, and loving his family with an open, infinite heart. He remains a brilliant light in the memories of those who loved him, an eternal reminder that a life lived with extraordinary generosity and boundless love will always echo far louder than any darkness. The warm breeze of Miami swept through the air on the 10th of March, 2007, carrying with the unmistakable feeling of a fresh start and boundless joy. It was a monumental day for the Clayton family. The sun shone brightly, reflecting the radiant smile of the bride, Rosemary Clayton, affectionately known to everyone as Rosie. She stood in her stunning white gown, ready to marry the love of her life, William Leslie. Yet, amidst a sea of flowers and the gentle hum of excited guests, there was a quiet, bittersweet undercurrent. Just 11 months prior, the Clayton family had lost their patriarch, a beloved father whose absence was deeply felt on this day of celebration. But stepping into the light, with a heart full of love and shoulders broad enough to carry the family through their grief, was Rosie's oldest brother, Steve Clayton. At 52 years of age, Steve was the undisputed head of the family. He had always been a towering figure of strength, wisdom, and boundless affection. Though he had never had children of his own, he possessed a natural, nurturing spirit that made him a father figure to his 4 younger sisters. When their parents first married, Steve was merely 2 or 3 years old, making him 10 years older than Rosie, the youngest of the siblings. For Rosie, there had never been a moment in her life without her big brother shining brightly as her personal hero. In her eyes, he was larger than life, a high school football player and wrestler whose physical strength was matched only by the sheer size of his heart. Asking Steve to walk her down the aisle was the easiest decision Rosie had ever made. As the traditional music began to play, tears of profound love and gratitude welled up in the eyes of the guests. The minister asked who gave this woman to be married, and Steve's voice rang out clear and true, proudly declaring that he did, in the loving memory of their father. Steve Clayton was a man who embraced life with infectious enthusiasm. After graduating from college with a degree in finance, he had quickly matured into a sharp, visionary businessman. Together with a partner, he founded a company dedicated to physical therapy resources, which blossomed into a highly successful national enterprise with centers spread all across the country. Through sheer determination and hard work, Steve achieved an extraordinary milestone. He retired at the age of 41, missing his personal goal of retiring at 40 by just a single year. Financial freedom, however, did not lead to a life of idle luxury. Instead, it freed Steve to pursue his true passion, which was giving back to the world. He dedicated his time to mentoring young men, guiding them as they started their own businesses or searched for direction in their lives. He was incredibly generous, not only with considerable resources, but with his time, his patience, and his wisdom. At the wedding reception, Steve's vibrant personality became the life and soul of the party. He playfully teased their Uncle Max, bringing roars of laughter from the family. When it came time for the speeches, Steve was the very first person on his feet. He took the microphone with a cheerful greeting of hello, 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 effortlessly drawing the attention of the entire room. His toast was entirely ad-libbed, flowing directly from his heart. He joked that his humor was just a way to deflect from the overwhelming emotions of the day, but his sincerity shone through every word. He thanked William for making his sister so incredibly happy and spoke beautifully of their late father. Steve honored a promise he had made to his father before his passing, to always take care of his sister. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated love, ending with Steve praising the newlyweds as great companions and partners, noting that he had never seen Rosie happier. The surprises of the evening did not end there. When the time came for the father-daughter dance, Steve gently took Rosie's hand and led her to the center of the dance floor. Before the music began, a deeply powerful and emotional moment unfolded. Steve had arranged for a surprise audio recording of their departed father to echo through the hall. His father's warm voice filled the room, reminiscing about the days when a young Rosie would climb onto his knee and declare her love. It was a beautiful, sentimental tribute that left not a single dry eye in the house. That day, Steve was everything to everyone: the best man, the stand-in father, the entertainer, the anchor keeping everyone calm, and the spark keeping everyone laughing. Despite his incredible professional success and his tight-knit network of family and friends, Steve's romantic life had experienced its share of turbulence. He was a man with a gigantic, boisterous personality, and he sought a partner who could match his determination, his focus, and his deep capacity for love and care. It was a remarkably tall order to fill. His family knew that at 52. It would take a truly exceptional person to connect with Steve emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. For a time, it seemed as though that perfect match might remain elusive. 3 years later, in the twilight of 2009, Steve decided it was time for a change of pace. He left his home state of Florida and moved to the beautiful, rolling landscapes of North Carolina. Steve had always cherished the outdoors. He loved walking, gardening, and embracing nature. The move afforded him the opportunity to spend far more time outside, breathing in the fresh air and enjoying the simple beauties of the world. Within just a few months of settling into his new life, a remarkable change came over him. He began to carry a radiant glow, a spark of excitement that his family had not seen in quite some time. He announced to his loved ones that he had finally met someone truly special. Her name was Lana Walsh, a Veterans Affairs nurse originally from Oklahoma, who was 12 years his junior. To the family, she appeared remarkably quiet and sweet, standing in stark contrast to Steve's loud, room-filling exuberance. Where Steve was a roaring fire of energy, Lana was described affectionately as something of a wallflower. Yet, opposites often attract, and Steve was absolutely certain that she was the one he had been waiting for. Whenever they were together, they were endlessly affectionate, walking arm in arm, sharing warm hugs and sweet kisses. Rosie, seeing how deeply her brother had fallen in love, welcomed Lana into the family with open arms. It was a joy to see Steve so thoroughly captivated, referring to her lovingly as his Lana Sue. He found a deep, grounding peace with her, a tranquility that perfectly balanced his dynamic spirit. It was not long before Steve, with his usual persuasive charm, convinced Lana to move in with him in Charlotte. Their home soon became a lively haven filled with warmth and joy. They adopted their first dog, a graceful Italian greyhound named Guinness, and soon after brought home a second named Sadie. With Lana and their beloved pets, Steve finally felt that his life was complete. On a lovely day in November 2013, surrounded by family and friends who had traveled across the country to celebrate with them, Steve and Lana were married in a beautiful ceremony right at their home in Charlotte. The love between them was palpable, beaming brightly for all to witness. Shortly after their wedding, the happy couple decided to move into what they considered their forever home, a gorgeous, ocean blue house sitting on a stunning piece of lakefront property on the banks of Lake Wylie, just over the border in South Carolina. The setting looked as though it had been pulled directly from a scenic postcard. They spent countless joyful hours refurbishing and decorating the house, filling it with Steve's cherished collection of artworks and antiques. Every object in their home held a personal story, reflecting Steve's deep appreciation for unique and historical items. Living on the lake allowed Steve to fully indulge his adventurous, outdoorsy spirit. He was always the first to jump into a new activity, whether it was boating, hiking, or simply exploring the shoreline. The new location also brought them wonderfully close to their extended family. Nick French, Steve's nephew by marriage since 2010, lived just a short drive away. Nick and his family frequently spent time with Steve and Lana, going out to dinner, attending concerts, and celebrating every holiday together. The house was also perfectly situated near Lana's son and twin granddaughters. Steve, a true child at heart, absolutely adored having the children around. He would gladly get down on the floor to play games, sing songs like Pop Goes the Weasel, and invent silly dances. The Clayton home was constantly filled with laughter, whether Steve was attempting to perform the limbo for the bemused twins or dramatically spinning the wheel of a children's board game, completely covered in imaginary pie. He was a giant teddy bear of a man, always surrounded by children hanging happily from his arms. For 5 wonderful years, Steve and Lana's marriage appeared to be a picture of idyllic bliss. However, in June of 2018, a strange shadow fell over their peaceful life. Steve, a man normally bursting with vitality, suddenly fell terribly ill. He complained of intense vertigo, a severe earache, and debilitating nausea. The sudden sickness caught him off guard while he was working out in his beloved garden. A Assuming he had merely suffered from heat exhaustion or sunstroke, he went inside to rest. According to Lana, as a trained nurse, she felt the best course of action was strict bed rest. Steve later recalled lying down and, incredibly, not opening his eyes again until 36 hours had mysteriously passed. When Rosie heard about this terrifying episode, she called Lana immediately, deeply concerned. Losing 36 hours of memory was an alarming event for a man of any age. Lana gently reassured the family that she was keeping a very close watch on him and that he was recovering well. The family, trusting Lana's medical background, felt a sense of relief knowing Steve was in the capable hands of his loving wife. True to her word, just 2 weeks later, Steve seemed to have completely bounced back. On the 4th of July, he hosted a spectacular party at the lake house, displaying his usual affectionate, lively self. He danced joyfully with Lana, pulling her into his arms while their friends and family cheered them on. Seeing them so completely in love, no one could have ever doubted that their future held nothing but long, happy years together. But tranquility is sometimes a fragile illusion. On the 21st of July, 2018, an emergency call was placed to the York County 911 dispatch. Responding units, including Sergeant Day, arrived at the sprawling, picturesque home on Lake Wylie. Body camera footage captured the tragic scene that awaited them. Just inside the grand entryway, at the bottom of a sweeping wooden staircase, lay the lifeless body of Steve Clayton. The officer spoke in hushed, respectful tones, mindful of Lana, who was waiting just around the corner, crying and visibly distraught. Sergeant Day approached Lana with deep empathy, explaining that he would stay with her until the coroner arrived. Lana, appearing heartbroken, recounted the events of the morning. She explained that Steve's severe vertigo had returned over the past 2 days. She claimed that on Thursday morning, he had stood up, become overwhelmingly dizzy, and collapsed. She had helped him up to their master bedroom, and since that moment, he had not returned downstairs. Lana told the officer that she had briefly stepped outside to mow the lawn, and upon re-entering the house, she discovered that he had fallen. She frantically tried to slide a blanket beneath him, but realized she was helpless to render aid. Panicking, she ran outside and waved down a passing motorcyclist to call for emergency help. The news traveled quickly to the family. Nick French, who was on duty as a police officer at the time, received a devastating phone call from his mother. The disbelief was instantaneous and suffocating. Rosie, hundreds of miles away, received the same unimaginable news. How could her vibrant, larger-than-life brother suddenly be gone? The family's immediate thoughts turned to Lana, imagining the unimaginable horror of finding her beloved husband in such a state. They rallied around her, determined to support her through the darkest moment of her life. As the initial investigation began, it seemed as though Steve's tragic end was a terrible, natural accident. Sergeant Day carefully inspected the house for any signs of a struggle, but found nothing out of the ordinary. The master bedroom showed a rumpled bed, but no evidence of an altercation. When the coroner arrived and examined Steve, she noted a bluish coloration across his chest, suggesting he had likely suffered a massive heart attack before collapsing at the bottom of the stairs. Lana clung to the theory that the vertigo had caused his fall, a narrative that seemed entirely plausible to the grieving family at first. However, as Nick and his family helped clean the house to make it comfortable for Lana, deeply unsettling details began to emerge. Upon entering the master bedroom, they were struck by a profound, unmistakable odor of human waste. In the center of the bed was a massive stain of urine, indicating that Steve, a man known for his impeccable cleanliness, had been confined to that bed, unable to use a restroom for several days. The mattress was incredibly heavy, soaked through entirely, forcing the family to carry it out of the house. When Rosie spoke with Lana that evening, she asked gently why no one in the family had been notified of Steve's prolonged illness. Lana claimed that Steve had been slowly feeling better, but that he had been sleeping heavily and had inexplicably lost his mobile phone a week prior. This explanation struck a sharp, discordant note in Rosie's heart. Steve was a businessman. He was practically attached to his phone, carrying it with him everywhere he went. The idea that he would misplace it for a week and not seek a replacement was entirely out of character. A quiet, terrifying suspicion began to take root within the family. The inconsistencies continued to multiply. Rosie asked Lana about Steve's final wishes, specifically his will. Steve, a meticulous accountant and planner, had spoken with Rosie many times about his desire to be laid to rest in a specific, beautiful cemetery in Fort Lauderdale. Yet, Lana confidently stated that there was no will. Furthermore, she had already made independent arrangements to have Steve cremated and scheduled a memorial service at their home on the 4th of August, when the family arrived for the deeply emotional celebration of his life. They were stunned to discover that Lana had already cleared out Steve's entire wardrobe, donating his clothing to the Veterans Affairs Center. The closet was nothing but a row of empty hangers. Even more troubling, many of Steve's valuable watches, his personal jewelry, and his wedding ring were nowhere to be found. United by a growing sense of unease, the family decided they could not simply accept the narrative of a natural death. They reached out to the medical examiner's office, pleading for a full autopsy, or, at the very absolute least, a comprehensive toxicology screening. The authorities agreed, and Detective Motes of the York County Sheriff's Office was assigned to look deeper into the circumstances surrounding Steve Clayton's untimely passing. The initial physical autopsy results seemed to corroborate the coroner's theory, showing signs of heart disease and pointing toward a natural heart attack. However, the true story lay hidden in the blood. Weeks later, the toxicologist report arrived, sending shockwaves through the investigative team. The screening revealed traces of marijuana, sleep aids, and allergy medication. But the most glaring and horrifying discovery was a massive, lethal concentration of a chemical known as tetrahydrozoline. Tetrahydrozoline is the active ingredient found in common over-the-counter eye drops. It is a substance that is strictly meant for external use. It is colorless, odorless, and completely tasteless. Ingesting small amounts of this chemical causes severe nausea, dizziness, and extreme sickness. Ingesting large quantities, however, is catastrophic. It aggressively attacks the central nervous system, drastically restricting the blood supply to vital organs, ultimately triggering a fatal heart attack. When the detectives reviewed the body camera footage from the day of Steve's death, they noticed a bottle of eye drops sitting on a tall dresser in the bedroom, placed deliberately out of reach of a man too weak to stand. The revelation transformed the case from a tragic accident into a calculated homicide. 5 weeks after Steve's death, Detective Motes brought Lana Clayton in for a formal interview. Initially, Lana confidently listed the various medications Steve had taken for his illness, completely omitting any mention of the eye drops. The detectives pressed her, asking directly about the massive quantity of tetrahydrozoline in his system. They mentioned they knew Steve sometimes used eye drops, but they needed to know how such a lethal amount had been ingested. Cornered, Lana attempted to shift the narrative, painting a dark and entirely uncharacteristic picture of her husband. She claimed that behind closed doors, Steve was verbally and physically abusive, forcing her to walk on eggshells, constantly calling her demeaning names. She stated that her fear and anger had built up over time. According to Lana, a co-worker had once casually mentioned that putting eye drops into someone's drink would cause severe stomach discomfort, acting as a secret, petty revenge. During a subsequent recorded conversation, Lana delivered a devastating confession. She admitted that in a moment of intense anger, she had taken a bottle of eye drops and aggressively squeezed it into Steve's drinking water. She confessed to likely emptying the entire bottle into his glass, leaving him to consume the toxic mixture. She expressed a chilling realization to detectives, asking what would happen to her if she had indeed caused his death with the drops. Armed with this confession, the police prepared to secure arrest warrants. However, the following morning, emergency services received a frantic call from one of Lana's neighbors. Knowing the authorities were returning, Lana had attempted to take her own life by turning on the natural gas in the home and ingesting pills. She was discovered unconscious, rushed to the hospital for treatment, and upon her release, she was immediately placed under arrest for murder and the tampering of food items. The news of the arrest hit the Clayton family like a physical blow. Nick French pulled his car over to the side of the road, overwhelmed by the confirmation of their darkest fears. Rosie's screams of anguish echoed through the telephone lines. The woman they had welcomed into their family, the woman they believed had brought peace to Steve's life, had methodically taken it away. As the legal proceedings unfolded, the prosecution dismantled Lana's defense. The timeline provided by the toxicology report proved that Steve had been suffering immensely for 3 full days. Lana's claim of a single impulsive dose on a Thursday morning was medically impossible. A single massive dose would have killed him much sooner. The evidence suggested a terrifying reality. Steve had been repeatedly and methodically poisoned over several days. Confined to his bed, stripped of his mobile phone, and without a landline in the house, he was trapped and isolated in a sprawling house with no way to call for help. On that final Saturday, knowing the end was near, Lana had administered the final, overwhelming dose, then calmly went outside to mow the lawn, deliberately distancing herself from the horrific culmination of her actions. Furthermore, Lana's attempts to assassinate Steve's character were fiercely rebuffed by everyone who knew him, friends, business partners, and the countless young men he had mentored came forward in droves to testify to his gentle soul, his kindness, and his unwavering generosity. The allegations of abuse were widely regarded as a desperate, fabricated attempt to avoid a life sentence or the death penalty. The underlying motive became painfully clear to the investigators and the family. In the state of South Carolina, without a formalized will, a person's entire estate automatically passes to their surviving spouse. By destroying or hiding Steve's will, Lana stood to inherit the entirety of his considerable fortune. It was a cold, calculated betrayal driven by unimaginable greed. On the 16th of January, 2020, Lana Clayton accepted a plea agreement. She pleaded guilty to the lesser charges of voluntary manslaughter and tampering with drug or food product, steadfastly refusing to admit that she had ever truly intended to kill him. She was sentenced to 25 years in a state penitentiary. For Steve's family, no amount of prison time could ever equate to the loss of their beloved brother, uncle, and friend. They recognized that had it not been for their unwavering intuition and their insistence on a toxicology report, Lana might have easily walked away with Steve's fortune, hiding behind the guise of a grieving widow. Though the tragedy brought immense pain, the Clayton family refused to let the darkness of Steve's final days overshadow the brilliant light of his life. They chose to remember the man who had always been the first to raise a glass and offer a toast. They chose to remember the man who played games on the floor with children, who loved his dogs, and who mentored strangers until they became family. As they moved forward,